who has the most potential in college football. You're saying, JD, you just did that segment last show. Am I watching a rerun? Nope. Your podcast is in the right place. Your YouTube machine's in the right place. We got so many comments in our comment section to our last most potential video saying you missed this guy, you missed that guy. So we're going to do a continued edition of who has the most potential in college football. And probably the number one complaint we got in the comment section was, JD, where's DJ Lagway? I'm like, yeah, you're 110% right, dude. DJ Lagway, I think, is poised to have a massive year in 2025, especially if what you saw at the end of last season ends up translating to be reality from 2025 at the beginning of the season all the way through. Because there's a lot of things he did last year that just kind of felt action figure-ish. The numbers don't tell the whole story. He made a couple of throws where you just kind of do the eyebrow raise, say, well, okay, that's different. Haven't seen something like that at quarterback here in Gainesville in quite a few minutes. And I love that. That part speaks for itself. But to me, not just the action figure stuff, it's the composure that this guy showed at different critical spots last year for Florida. Remember, when he got the keys to the job at Florida, Florida was not rocking and rolling offensively. It wasn't like Florida was in this tremendous place when it came to how they were going to finish out 2025. There was this new vote of confidence for Billy Napier from the powers that be at Florida. But, again, Florida was not working with a lot of momentum. And that game against Tennessee, I think, tells us everything we need to know about how this guy's wired. 3rd and 18. You already know where I'm going with this if you're a Florida fan. 3rd and 18. Neyland's rocking. Down by 7. 38 seconds and counting. 37. 36. Snaps the ball. Steps up in the pocket. Feels the rush. Throws a absolute laser to Shamir DK. Ties up the game. Like, that's not true freshman kind of stuff. To be making plays like that in that spot against that opponent in that stadium. Now, I don't care if Florida lost that game. That, to me, said, okay, this dude's going to be a problem here for the foreseeable future. If he can stay healthy, major caveat, if he can stay healthy, Florida's got a game changer at quarterback. DJ Lagway, tons of potential. Here's one that I think needs a little bit more buzz. Dakorien Moore, freshman wide receiver at Oregon, was an early enrollee, number 1 wide receiver in his class for pretty much, I think, just about every single outlet. Now, hear me clearly. I think with Evan Stewart being injured, and you hope and pray Evan Stewart gets back sooner rather than later, if you're an Oregon fan, I think Dakorien Moore is going to be the best wide receiver on this football team. That's not to knock Malik Benson, not to knock Casper. They got a lot of good players, but Dakorien Moore just has that it factor to him. All right, he made a couple of plays in that spring game that, just what I said with DJ Lagway, you kind of raise your eyebrows and say, okay, that's not a true freshman kind of play that he just made, where he's tightroping the sideline, contorting his body. Also, in that spring game, it should be noted how often early that they were going to Dakorien Moore. Now, I know it's a spring game, so you don't want to take too much from a glorified practice, but I think spring games are kind of a peek inside as to what's going on behind closed doors. All the overall attitude towards Dakorien Moore in that game told me there's confidence towards that true freshman and told me they have confidence in him because he's been making those plays behind closed doors out there in Eugene. Now, I'm super curious to see how they utilize him, because the thought with Evan Stewart was he was finally going to be playing in position in that slot wide receiver role, which Tez Johnson made a killing at. With him not being in the lineup, you would imagine, does Dakorien Moore shift into the slot? And if he is in the slot, and that's at least, it feels like a walking 70 reception kind of year for anyone who ends up playing that role. Tez Johnson, I think, had 80 catches 2 years in a row. Dakorien Moore's got the it factor, all right? And he's going to be a baller for them this year. I'll stand on that. I think he's going to be the best receiver on that team when it's all said and done. Notice I said receiver. I'm still very high on Kenyon Sadiq, who plays tight end, but receiver, Dakorien Moore, I think is going to be your best one for the Ducks. Dylan Raiola. Yeah, I don't think we've even seen his best stuff yet, which isn't saying a lot because he was a true freshman last year as well. But what I love so much about Dylan Raiola going into 2025 is just everything around him is better. All right, got the Adidas deal, so the money's probably better. Got a better offensive line by how they attacked the portal. Got better wide receivers by how they went and got the portal guys right that way. Also with Dane Key, you have an offensive coordinator now who is what I would say he speaks quarterback fluently with Dana Holgorsen. You saw a massive difference in just the overall composure of a Dylan Raiola from the time that Dana Holgorsen started calling the offense last year to when they finished with that bowl game. The fact that you now have a system that you can build for Dylan Raiola with Dana Holgorsen, not going from the old offense, trying to piece it together with old verbiage and just make it all work on the fly. I think that he's in for a really big year. We have a Nebraska record prediction for you later in the show. Stick around. But I think that he's going to be in for a very big year here in 2025. Speaking of big years, Notre Dame's passing game also, I think, has a ton of potential. It feels like to me that Mike Denbrock last year was just kind of making it work with Riley Leonard. Not knocking Riley Leonard. He had a great year last year. I mean, the first drive that he had in the national title game, when they finished that game, like nothing bad to say about Riley Leonard. However, if you know Mike Denbrock's offense, you know he would like to throw it a little bit more. That number that I think he wants to be at is right around 30 attempts a game. Hadn't been at that since he got to South Bend. Now with CJ Carr being your quarterback and this wide receiver room, I think he's got the ingredients to get the saucer out a little bit, get the frying pan out, and like kind of get cooking on the stove here. The big thing with them is I think that with their personnel, they can now truly attack you at all levels. Last year it was a lot of, can they manufacture something and play action? Can they just get it to a guy in space and let him create something explosive? But with what they have in that receiver room now, Jaden Greathouse, he's proven he can be a deep threat guy for you. Underneath, you got Faison and Will Pauling. Outside, you got Malachi Fields, who's all of 6'4", 223. They can attack you at all levels of the field. They got a quarterback who can get it to all levels of the field. I think that, again, plays a lot more into the scheme that Mike Denbrock wants to run. And then just the cherry on top of all this, you got a running back out of the backfield who can be just as dynamic with what he can be for you in that pass game, in addition to setting things up with the run. So Notre Dame's pass game was like 7 yards a pass last year in the 70s when it comes to their national ranking. They will be, I think, substantially better here in 2025 under CJ Carr and with that improved wide receiver room. Just as a team overall, is there a situation in college football that is better positioned to make a run than Clemson? And forget the ACC part of it for a second. I don't think we understand how truly talented this Clemson football team is. Todd McShay is, I think, one of the best in the business. Not I think, I know. It's pretty well understood, one of the best in the business when it comes to projecting for NFL talent. He put out a way too early mock draft for 2026, and it is way too early. There's still a lot that has to happen. But purely based on that way too early mock draft, he had 4 Clemson players going in the top 10. He had 6 Clemson players going in the first round. I don't care what conference you're from. I don't care what logo's on your helmet. That's ridiculous. Like that's the Georgia kind of territory. That's the Ohio State kind of territory. Clemson playing in the ACC is about to wreck shop, and it's not just a talent. It's experienced talent. It's guys that have played a lot of football. So there's a veteran presence paired with the talent. Clemson, it's all right there for you, man. If you want to get back to the days where you're hoisting national championship trophies, there's nothing on that roster, on paper, that should hinder you from getting that done. Last one here, Oklahoma's backfield. We mentioned Texas A&M's backfield in the last show, and I got to thinking about Oklahoma and what they have back there. I think that just the versatility they have is second to none between Jade Knott and John Mateer. Like there's that song from the Mannequin Challenge, Black Beatles, Ray Shrimmerd, get you somebody who can do both. Get you a backfield that can do pretty much everything. If you want to run the option, Jade Knott, John Mateer. I haven't played with them yet in College Football 26, but I bet they're nasty. You can just do the design run game with a John Mateer in the quarterback run game. You can obviously call the run game for Jade Knott. You can throw it with a Jade Knott and put pressure on defense that way. You can use Jade Knott as a decoy. You can use John Mateer's legs as a decoy. There's so many levels to what they do in this offense that will elevate everyone else's game and will force defenses to have to make resource decisions. Oklahoma's backfield is set up to be, I think, one of the most dynamic in all of college football. Potential coming out their ears out there in Norman, Oklahoma.